expresar sobre todo mi agradecimiento y gratitud a los organizadores de estas jornadas, el mundo por delante, por haber invitado a la Fiscalía y a mí en particular, en mi propio nombre y en representación de esta institución que es una de las piezas fundamentales del sistema de justicia penal. La Fiscalía, el fiscal, como sabéis, tiene un papel importante, trascendental, como defensor de las víctimas, de las personas más vulnerables, de los menores, y hay que recordar que la mayor parte de las agresiones, de las mutilaciones genitales femeninas se sufren cuando las mujeres son niñas, de los 4 y los 14 años. También quiero destacar mi condición de fiscal o de responsable de la Fiscalía de la Audiencia Nacional, un órgano judicial que tiene asignada la función de perseguir estos delitos específicamente cuando se cometen fuera de España y sus responsables se encuentran en territorio español por aplicación del principio de justicia universal. Esa novedad competencial fue introducida en el artículo 23 de la Ley Orgánica del Poder Judicial por una ley orgánica del año 2005 en cuya exposición de motivos se dice muy claramente que la mutilación genital femenina constituye un grave atentado contra los derechos humanos. Es un ejercicio de violencia contra las mujeres que afecta directamente a su integridad como personas. La mutilación de los órganos genitales de las niñas y de las jóvenes debe considerarse como un trato inhumano y degradante, incluido junto a la tortura en las prohibiciones que establece el artículo 3 del Convenio Europeo de Derechos Humanos. Hoy es el Día Internacional contra la Mutilación Genital Femenina, 6 de febrero. Por eso coinciden estas jornadas. Y es el día de reconocer, si cabe con más fuerza, que la mutilación genital femenina no es un hecho puntual, no es una cuestión marginal, es una auténtica epidemia. No es una manifestación cultural aceptable, es un crimen. Y hay que decirlo con todas las palabras. Ataca, afecta a la dignidad humana, a la vida, a la integridad, a la libertad, a los valores más esenciales del ser humano, comunes a todas las culturas, comunes a todas las tradiciones, comunes a todas las religiones. Son derechos que se vulneran cuando se lleva a cabo esta práctica y que forman parte de ese mínimo ético intercultural que debe ser aceptado en todos los lugares del mundo. Más de 100 millones de mujeres han sido sometidas a estas prácticas criminales. Cada año, más de 2 millones de mujeres siguen siendo objeto de mutilaciones genitales. Cada día, unas 6.000 niñas corren el riesgo de ser objeto de esta práctica, lo cual nos revela la enorme gravedad y la enorme dimensión del problema. Una práctica muy extendida, particularmente en algunos lugares de África, donde se calcula que los porcentajes de mutilación genital o de ablación son superiores al 95%. Esta es la razón, naturalmente, por la que Naciones Unidas ha aprobado recientemente una resolución, el 20 de diciembre del año 2012, en la que insta a todos los Estados a perseguir de forma eficaz estas prácticas y implementar sus ordenamientos jurídicos para evitar que esto suceda. Y aunque muchos Estados, muchas legislaciones han incorporado la prohibición de estas prácticas, lo cierto es que el sistema de justicia penal no persigue suficientemente estos delitos. Son muy escasos los pronunciamientos judiciales, de los cuales cabe destacar uno muy reciente, una sentencia del Tribunal Supremo de 31 de octubre del año 2012, donde dice algo que es claro y meridiano en respuesta a quien es condenado por llevar a cabo esta actuación con respecto a su hija, de pocos meses de edad, argumentando que es una práctica ancestral de su tribu, de su sociedad. Dice que el respeto a las tradiciones y a las culturas tiene como límite infranqueable el respeto a los derechos humanos, que actúan como mínimo común denominador exigible en todas las culturas, tradiciones y religiones. La relación del clítoris no es cultura, es mutilación y discriminación femenina. Para hablar de estos aspectos jurídicos, de la necesidad de reforzar el marco legal nacional e internacional y de implementar medidas legales para ser eficaces en la aplicación de las leyes, porque una ley que no se aplica no es una buena ley, genera impunidad, contamos con una activista con una gran experiencia internacional, Faiza Jama Mohamed, somalí de origen, con estudios universitarios en la Universidad de Fresno, California, titulada en Derechos Humanos por el Instituto de Estudios Sociales de La Haya. Ha recibido varios premios en reconocimiento a su labor en defensa de los derechos humanos y de los derechos de las mujeres. Desde el año 2000 dirige la oficina regional de Equality Now para África, con sede en Nairobi, una organización internacional que lleva más de 20 años trabajando a favor de los derechos humanos de las mujeres y de las niñas de todo el mundo, que tiene su sede en Nueva York, en Londres y Nairobi, y que basa su estrategia en realizar campañas de incidencia pública y política a nivel general, y por supuesto de denunciar los casos individuales de abusos que se identifican, llevarlos a los tribunales y sobre todo defender los derechos de las víctimas. Ella es una especialista en estas cuestiones, creo que nos dará una visión muy amplia de cuál es el estado legal actual del combate o de la lucha contra la mutilación genital femenina y nos ofrecerá seguramente soluciones porque tiene una visión mucho más próxima y cercana del problema de la que podemos tener todos nosotros. Faiza, tienes la palabra y te pido disculpas porque me voy a retirar con todas las obligaciones profesionales. Ha sido un placer presentar.
Thank you and good morning. First of all, to begin with, to give you greetings from Africa, and also to appreciate the support that Spain is giving Africa, especially African women's involvement. The Spanish government is giving support through the MEDAC program in Africa, which is an African Union program. And we also get support from individuals from Spain and also Mundo Comprando and others who are there bringing us resources. So we really appreciate all that. And as also we are following the news of Spain, our thoughts and prayers are with you on these hard times, and we wish you well. Thank you. Now coming to the subject of discussion, I'm going to speak to our work experience around combating female genital mutilation, and specifically look at the implementation of law and how to enhance cooperation between countries. As our moderator just explained, female genital mutilation is a human rights violation. It is an extreme form of violence against women and discrimination against women. The UN estimates that about 100 to 140 women have been victims of this practice around the world, and especially in Africa, the majority. And 3 million are still at risk of FGM every year. So it is a global issue. It's practiced in 28 countries, but in many countries as well, brought by migrants to Europe and US. But also recently we are also seeing that it is practiced in Asia, countries like Malaysia, Indonesia, even in some of the Arab states. So it has become a global issue that needs to be addressed globally. In Africa, various strategies have been used by activists, people who are on the front line, to try to end this practice. because it is deeply entrenched in community mindsets as a cultural practice, but also as some consider it religious. Then a lot of investment has been done over the years in community sensitizations. Attempts were also made to buy out the circumcisers from continuing the practice, meaning that they are given an alternative means of income generation. But that has not been mostly a successful way of ending the practice, because you need to address the demand and not just the supply side. Some communities, after sensitizations, have come up with community declarations and bylaws where they institute certain banishments among themselves. In a village, people depend on one another, and if the community agrees that they will not practice, then you are alienated. So if you have an event, a social event, if the body doesn't come to you because you have broken the rule or the norm of the community. So that has been one of the pressure points that has been used and successful in some places that it has been tried. Activists has also invested a lot in youth. Some people feel like the old generation is not going to change. We have to invest in the youth, boys and girls, so that they are the ones, the future parents, who will bring this practice to an end. But that's a long-term strategy. But mostly empowerment of girls. That has been very critical. Girls are standing up once they know that it's wrong, once they know the consequences, and they see what life they have. Early marriage, FGM, condemned to a life that they don't choose for themselves. And on the other hand, education and possibility of becoming potentially a productive citizen. And going far in terms of career-wise. So girls are therefore coming out. Legislation has been a key element because countries, governments have a responsibility to protect girls, women, from the practice. So they are the duty bearers. And internationally there has been adoption of human rights instruments, and those have been adopted in some countries. So the provisions in some of these conventions address female genital mutilation, can be used to bring out or to use these instruments for legal protection. The Convention on Civil and Political Rights, the Convention on Elimination of All Forms of Discrimination, these are all UN conventions, the Convention on the Rights of the Child. And more recently, last year, there was the UN General Assembly resolution that bans FGM. So there is a global effort to end the practice. In Africa, we have the protocol to the African Charter on Human and People's Rights. It's a protocol that was adopted in 2003. So this year, we're going to celebrate 10 years of the protocol's into being. And we have the African Charter on Human and People's Rights, which is the parent charter of the protocol. And then we have also the African Charter on the Rights and Welfare of the Child. Now I would like to focus on the protocol on the rights of women. It's very key. It's the first human rights instrument that explicitly dictates that all countries should have a law. And this is directed at the African Union member states. Today we have 36 countries that have ratified it, and we have 54 member states. So we're still trying to get 18 more to be on board and committed to providing the rights that are stated in this protocol. And Article 5 of this protocol clearly says you have to have a law, you have to protect victims, you have to ensure justice for victims, and you have to invest in education of the public. And that's very key because most governments have not invested enough to educate the public. All the resources that have been spent on community sensitization has been coming mostly from the civil society organizations who have been getting resources externally and also internally, but there has been work of So the picture is that today 20 countries out of 28 countries where we have the practice have a law against the practice. But the problem here is the application is minimal. It is not effective. And there are great deals of challenges that hinder the implementation of the law. If I give just some examples shortly. But also know that the law has also been used successfully when it has been tried. The challenges on application of the law, I said there have been weaknesses. So one is that the investment in the public education and especially the law enforcement agents is not enough. So the law enforcement agencies, meaning the police, public prosecutors and so on, they're part of the community who believe also in the practice. So they're not in favor of, they see more as a private thing and then as a criminal activity. The implementation of the law, therefore, is silent in most countries, and when it happens, there's weak sentencing. For example, in Niger, when circumcisers are brought to justice, the judge doesn't feel, to give strong sentence. Doesn't give the maximum that the law allows. They give what they call suspended sentence, so that you have been prosecuted, but now you go back and serve within the community, so you're not going to jail. And that doesn't give a strong signal to the community. It just means that it's okay, you just go past, do the motions, and then you're back in the community and continue doing more harm to the girls. And so that is therefore not a helpful approach. And then child protection mechanism is what you need. The child is, small, doesn't know what to do. The responsibility should be put on teachers, on health people, all the professionals that are associated with the child to know want to act on their behalf in order to stop the mutilation. So all that is missing. There is no framework nationally that goes through it. And where it exists, it's not working unless you take advantage of the work that the NGOs, some of the NGOs are doing. And I would like to particularly single out one group in Kenya, Tasaru, which has come up with an indigenous way of protecting the girls. They have connected with the leaders at the church. They have connected with chiefs. Chiefs in the villages are supposed to adhere to, watch out for any violations of the law and alert the authorities. And they have both women who are kind of like watchdogs, monitors within the community. So once they gave their sensitization, and the girls especially are targeted, and the girls know who among the community they can run to if they are at risk, then they alert the organization, who then comes in to rescue the girl. But because she's young, they cannot just take the girl away. They have to inform the authorities, and in this case, the office of there's a children's office that goes under the Ministry of Internal Home Affairs, and once that office gives permission for them to host the girl, then they keep them in a sheltered place, facilitate them to continue education, but then start a process of negotiation with the parents so that the girls can go back to their homes. And once the parents are convinced that if they cut the girls, that they face serious charges with the law, and they commit to not mutilate them, then they are reunited with the parents and they go back. So we feel like that's a successful model that's working and has saved hundreds of girls in Kenya. And that could be something that countries can also pick up and learn from these small CBO that have started. Again, in Kenya, I'd like to show an example of how girls are using the law once you empower them. There were first two girls in 2001 who stood up and refused to be circumcised by their father, who wanted to, because they have reached the age and soon to get ready for marriage. And that is 15, 16. And so they're still child, they still want to go to school. And so they sought, they shared a problem with a lady, and the lady brought them to a human rights organization. And so in Kenya you have a provision where, because as minors they cannot go to court, but somebody can go on your behalf. And so that, after consulting a lawyer, that's what the organization did. And they won a landmark decision. The father was told he cannot. The court issued an injunction, order that the parent or an agent of the parent, can circumcise these girls, but also to continue their parental responsibility. So now you have this order, but you also have to take care of the child. Because the tendency is that you send away the child and say, you refused my orders, you leave and throw the child out, and which is problematic also. So that was a good precedence, and many girls afterwards, something like 20 more girls have used this approach to protect themselves from FGM. In Liberia there is no law, but there was a case of a woman who was forced into mutilation. They have what they call secret society, and so she was taken to the bush where she was kept for over a month. And so there was no law, but you could use certain provisions from the penal code to prosecute. And that case could not have gone forward without also international support. We had to mobilize international pressure on the government to look into this case. And so her case initially was in the community where it happened, but that's a community that practices FGM, and it was not seen as a place that is where she can get a fair trial. So the case had to be moved to Monrovia, where she could get a fair trial. So that was done. And another case I would like to point in Kenya was a case of a young girl who died after mutilation. And so the family just buried her. But the monitor came to know about it, and so alerted Tasaru, and they sought an order to exhume the body and determine what was the cause. So once that was established, it was taken, the father and the circumciser were arrested. And I would like to bring out especially this case because of the challenges around implementation of the law. This is a case, therefore, once it started, and the public prosecutors in the village level, other police officers, the father started connecting with the police prosecutors, and therefore some bribe took place under the table, and now the prosecutor acted in terms of calling witnesses. He sends false dates, so that when the court is meeting, the witnesses are not there. So then the magistrate says, where are the witnesses? They are not there. So then they go and set a new date, and again they try to do that. But because we have been monitoring very closely, we find out what days the court is meeting, and we ensure that witnesses are there. But not all the witnesses were there. So then they see that it's not going to work much, and we also brought it to the attention of the magistrate and say, you better look at these. These dates have been the court dates, and we have shown the sermon papers that showed a conflicting date. So the next court hearing, the father and the circumciser didn't show up at all. They were on bail, so they escaped. So then the magistrate gave an order that they should be arrested because they were not supposed to miss any hearing. The next thing that happens, the police did not put protection, the order for arrest in the file, and so no follow-up is being done. So every time they meet, they cannot be found, is the response. So then a new date is set. So in many times, that frustrates people, and and so you need to keep out and watch the process from the beginning, and to keep ensure that there are no malpractice is happening. One of my colleagues went to see to the police and said, "Why really can't you find these people?" On that day, the officer was away. Another one looked at the file, and he said, "There is no order in this file saying that we should arrest these people, so that's why we are not following, maybe." So then, at that point, we went to the High Commissioner of Police himself and wrote to him and said, "We are very concerned about this, and we did detail it out, all the things that happened." And imagine, in 1 week, they were arrested once the police commissioner got involved. And then they pleaded to guilty, and so they were both 10 years in prison. So you feel like, okay, justice done for the girl, but now we are hearing that the father is out. The circumciser is there, but the father is out. So we're following up why he is out. And the point is, these cases all are an opportunity for the local organization to create more awareness about the law within the community and start discussions. So it is a learning also opportunity for the community to know about the law, because there is no investment to indicate at national level that this is against the law, and it should be dealt with like that. So these moments are important for the organizations. Now, on areas of collaboration, police training we feel is important, and there is an investment through bilateral relations. For example, the U.S. government supports several countries with their police training. So we've been encouraging them that in that training program they should include also discussion about FGM, and that the police have an obligation and responsibility to act when girls are at risk and to protect them. So similarly, if Spain is also giving such support, then it's important it's taken into consideration. Then there is this issue of cross-border. When countries have a law and others don't, then the people just go across the border and do the FGM in the next one. For example, Mali has a law. People who are in Burkina Faso and who are afraid of the law, they will just cross to Mali, and it's happening. And so they mutilate the girls there and then go back later. So it's important to have a more strengthened collaboration between borders. And nowadays, the laws are being strengthened by different countries. For example, in the UK, they have closed the loop, and so now if you take out migrants want to go home and they take the girls back home for mutilation, they will still be held liable if the girls mutilated while outside the country. Kenya and Uganda, recently, the laws they have passed. Also, if you take a Kenyan girl outside Kenya, you still will be prosecuted. And if you bring girls from abroad to Kenya, you'll also be prosecuted if you mutilate them. But how many people know about it? So there's need for investment, and for these countries, to work together, especially where there is a lot of migration or movement, between countries, and they have the laws. That has to be very clear. The immigration people have to be involved. There should be big, information leaflets or billboards at airports, to tell them that this is the case and they could be in trouble. And one other point that has come up was the need for standardization of laws, so that you don't feel, a parent doesn't feel, okay, if I go to Benin, maybe I'll get only 3 months punishment, so I'll cut the girl there. Instead of in my country, well, I might get 5 years if I cut. So this point came out, especially in a recent meeting in Rome. One of the ministers was raising that we need to standardize the laws. Technical assistance in developing child protection systems is critical. so that's the most, I think, for us, the key thing is if it is institutionalized in the national program, a protection system for the child, then that will go a long way. And so there are countries where there is such systems, especially in the north, and then we need therefore to learn from that, and we could support Africa with building such systems. Now I'd like to spend a few minutes now on what lessons we have from the campaign. It is really important to use the law every time, because if we are not using it, then it will not make a difference. It will remain on paper. And then, like I was saying, the constant monitoring and follow-up action is important to expose the malpractices that surround this. And then, when local avenues are exhausted, then we need to not give up, but go to the regional mechanisms. Because there's the African Human Rights System, we have the African Commission on Human and People's Rights, which receives complaints of violations, and there's the African Court on Human and People's Rights, which can also make decisions. And for example, now one of the things we are considering is, Equality Now has been campaigning now almost more than 7 years in Mali to have a law against the practice, because they cut the girls when they are very young and they cannot protect themselves. And we have used different avenues to continue pressure the government to have a law, but they still don't have it. So, but they are a state party to the Protocol on the Rights of Women, and Article 5 obligates them to have a law. So they are, technically they are in violation of this Article 5. So we can take them to the African Court and say Mali is in violation of this Article 5, and then a decision can be made at that level. So that is one way we can continue the pressure and ensure that countries are active. And it's important to publicize the outcomes of the decisions that come out. Because, like I said earlier, the court decisions have been used by groups to educate the community, and so that helps to create discussion and debate, and finally to hopefully something good. For countries where we don't have the law, we should always use the relevant provisions in the penal codes, like the bodily injury articles that apply to that. And then to tirelessly lobby these countries to pass a law criminalizing. And I just explained how we are trying to persuade Mali to do that. Now, there are a lot of opportunities available in Africa where we can optimize on to advance the campaign. In 2010, African Union has declared an African Women's Decade. So 2010 to 2020 is African Women's Decade. And this is a period where, the reason that the decade was announced was women were saying that we are fed up with every time we are passing a policy or a law and this, and no implementation at all. So it's a period where countries are committing that they would make real changes and they will implement their commitments. So it's again, if we are not active and doing something, they will not move. So we have to make use of this opportunity. Then we have now a serious woman from South Africa who is the AU Commission chairperson, and she's very committed, of course, to ensuring that women's rights are high up on the agenda. So her presence itself is really a very good opportunity that we can use in Africa. The other thing is there is a Solomon Declaration on Gender Equality in Africa that was adopted by the heads of state in 2004. And they have said they will report each other annually. So every year, the chairperson prepares a report which is presented to them on what progress is being done. So it's important to keep the issues alive at that space so that you could, even countries like Burkina Faso, which has led this UN resolution, to be adopted. And MSA was the Africa group that has supported this. They could take the lead, for example, and we have been telling them to do so, to speak about FGM and challenge each other at that level, you know, heads of state talking about it. So that would be a wonderful thing if it happens. In May, the AU is celebrating 50 years. So the question is, where is, you know, what's the position of women after 50 years? What are we celebrating for in Africa? Women are still, you know, suffering from A, B, C, D, you know, all these things, including, you know, FGM. There will be discussion around the both MDGs plans, you know, that's the Millennium Development Goals. We should see that FGM is situated as a development issue because it does have a lot of connotations on that. So it should be removed from being seen as something cultural, private, and more into the development agenda, and therefore a serious issue to discuss. Commission on the Status of Women, you know, I'm sure many of you might be going, happens in New York every year. And this time they are talking about ending violence against women. And so this is another moment to capitalize, to reaffirm commitments to ending violence against women, and especially FGM could be that. And then we have the Secretary General campaign on Unite to end violence against women. And so there's a component of that which is Africa Unite campaign. And that campaign has been relaunched last year at top of the Kilimanjaro, and Ormato was there with her team. And it was a very big moment for Africans to come together and say from the top, you know, of the highest mountain in Africa to shout that, you know, we're going to end violence against women. So this momentum created by this campaign is also something we are riding on to continue to push, you know, an end to this practice. Now, in conclusion, we really have come a long way, and the good news is that the girls are really empowered and are standing up for their rights. Boys are also coming out to say we don't want girls to be circumcised. In a small village in Ethiopia, actually, 2 young couples, you know, got married. Both of them refused by their parents. They came out together, supported by colleagues, married in a public place, shouted that, you know, we don't want to circumcision. And since then, it has become a trend for the youth. They are repeating the same thing. Everybody goes in the public and supports each other. And so those are the inspiring things we are seeing, and which give us a lot of hope. So we need to keep the momentum to enhance the international cooperation and to make this worldwide ban on FGM really a reality. Thank you.